Harmon and Levac, 104.5 The Team. You're home for New York sports.
Clock begins to run, down to 7. Cousins with it. Spangler had it stripped. Hield gets it. Shoots. No good. Game is over. Jayhawks win it. 109-106 in triple overtime.
What an unbelievable night. The Jayhawks are 2-0. Bill Self and Lon Kruger with the handshake. One of the best games I've seen in this place since Kansas, Missouri. What a ball game.
College basketball analyst Sean Farnham with Armin in the Bag right now, at Sean Farnham on Twitter. Sean, in your words, that game last night, your reaction?
Wow. I think it was the best game that I can remember in regular season. Certainly the start of conference play, the high level of basketball that we saw last night. How many times have we seen 1 versus 2, and then it's just a dud game?
Yeah,
and you sit there going, well, gosh, that didn't live up to the hype. But this one actually exceeded expectations, and it was, obviously the Buddy Hield show was outstanding, 46 points for him. But even more so than that, I think just the level of play that we saw at both ends and the ability to value the basketball, only 30 combined turnovers between the two teams in 55 minutes. Truly a clean and well-played game between two of the best teams in college basketball.
I know it's a long way out, but hard to say that one of these two teams, hard to not picture one of them in the Final Four, right?
Or both.
Okay.
I mean, we could see both of them in the Final Four. I mean, I think they're that good. And in fact, when we did our power rankings for ESPN, we sent them in after the game last night, and I kept Oklahoma at 2. I was like, how am I supposed to drop them? Like, I can't drop them. Like, look, I mean, they would have been 1 if they won, and they lost, and okay, fine, that's their first loss of the season, and everybody else has got a loss, and that's about as good as a loss as you're going to find. So certainly, I think it's two teams that definitely have an opportunity to meet again. They will obviously in conference play, maybe even the conference tournament, and then maybe even in the NCAA tournament.
ESPN college basketball analyst Sean Farnham with Armin in the Bag, 104.5 The Team. Conference play opening up this week. Give me the game this week that we got to watch, Sean. What are you keeping an eye on?
Well, I think we've got a couple of really interesting games that people have got to watch. Tonight in particular, a very important game for LSU. It's been extremely disappointing thus far this season. Very poor strength of schedule, poor success with the best player maybe in the country when you look at a guy like Ben Simmons taking on Kentucky. They've got him at home tonight in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. A win against Kentucky, all of a sudden they would beat Vandy at Vandy and Kentucky at home. I think the narrative starts to flip a little bit on LSU. I think the other game that's going to be incredibly interesting to me is on Thursday night, not just because Bill Walton's back on air with Dave Pasch, which is always fun, all right, but it's UCLA, Arizona at UCLA. They're honoring Russell Westbrook for his contributions to the new practice facility, so he's going to be on hand with his teammates as they play on Friday night against the Lakers, also on ESPN. But in particular, it's a UCLA team that lost 2 games in a row on the road to start conference play. They were ranked in the top 25. They lose a heartbreaker at Washington in overtime. Then they get beat at Washington State. Now they've got Arizona on their home floor, a team that they have not had a lot of success against. If they fall to 0-3, and now you wonder if the wheels will fall off the wagon and they really start to spiral and maybe fail even to make the NCAA tournament, which seems hard to imagine considering that they knocked off Kentucky and made national headlines last month doing so. Conference
play has begun this week in college basketball. ESPN has a ton of your college basketball conference games this week. And Sean Farnham of ESPN joining us now. Sean, Syracuse takes on North Carolina Saturday night. Jim Boeheim returning to the sidelines after serving his NCAA suspension. What do you make of the return and where this team is at right now?
Well, obviously, I think it's going to be really important to have him back, his leadership, and it just makes everybody, I think, relax mentally a little bit more, and all this stuff starts to get put behind the program. I think the better it's going to be. The problem is with their opponent. I mean, you look at North Carolina, and so much attention last night to Buddy Hield, and deservedly so, but the performance of the night and the performance of the season probably is Bryce Johnson. 39 points, 23 rebounds last night, 14 of 16 shooting from the floor. Not to mention, by the way, that his teammate Marcus Page also had 30 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds last night. So an unbelievably powerful North Carolina Tar Heel team. And when you look at the ACC from top to bottom, Syracuse is on the outside looking in, especially when you look at the top 3 teams of Virginia, Duke, and North Carolina and where they're at, even with Virginia losing at Virginia Tech last night in a very close game, but one that they had far too many turnovers for Coach Bennett, Coach Team.
Sean, we have Siena head coach Jimmy Patsos joining us in studio in the next 10 minutes. Of course, here in Albany, we have Albany and Will Brown and that team who's made the tournament the last 3 years in a row. What are the mid-major teams? Give me a team or two mid-major that can maybe shock some people we should be keeping an eye on as we get closer to March.
No problem. I saw Albany earlier this year. My first game of the year was against Kentucky, so I saw them there. And although they took the loss there, they played pretty well, considering that they did not play their best game. You know what I'm saying? Like you saw them and you're like, they didn't even play close to really what they could be. They've got a chance to be really good. Obviously, Stony Brook is going to be really tough in the American East. But I think if you look at a team that maybe people around the nation haven't taken a look at, look in the Missouri Valley Conference. We've focused so much on Wichita State. And obviously now with Fred Van Vliet back, the Shockers are a better team. They've got a great matchup against Evansville, and Evansville is off to a sensational start, 13-2 on the season. They got DJ Ballantyne, who's a proven scorer, and they've got a Lithuanian center underneath by the name of Makavešius, who is leading the nation right now in rebounds and has had 20-plus points. He's averaging over 20 points per game, about 18 points per game, and 14.5 rebounds per game. He's had a couple 20-rebound, 20-point games already this season. That combination with the emergence of Jaylen Brown, who's one of the other guards on that team, I think the Purple Aces have a legitimate chance to win the Missouri Valley Conference this year. And obviously they're going to get tested. Their next game up is against Wichita State, and it's tomorrow night at Wichita State. So if they can win that game at the Roundhouse, I think people nationally are going to start taking notice that this is a very good team that I think can win games in the NCAA tournament.
College basketball analyst for ESPN, Sean Farnham, at Sean Farnham on Twitter this week. It's a great follow as always, and especially this week with conference play heating up and starting in college basketball. Sean, thanks so much for your time today, man. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Have a good one.